Welcome back, Shalligators. Well, today we're continuing our series on the holiday blues. It's a tough time. I mean, the holidays are tough in the best of years, and in this year, they're especially difficult. And one thing I think we found ourselves mired in lately is nostalgia, reminiscing, thinking about the past. And nostalgia, someone once said, is the most dangerous emotion. I like the most dangerous emotion. Nostalgia? You would think it'd be rage, jealousy, something like that. But when you think about it, what is nostalgia? It's the past calling out to you, telling you that not only is the past better than the present, you can't even go back there. It's seemingly this like endless circular loop of longing and frustration and stagnancy and misery, and most of all, not being present in where you are. So if you find yourself caught up in nostalgia, I've actually got some good tricks to get through it, some questions to ask yourself to kind of unravel what's going on, and how to stay focused on the present, right? But before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to go follow me on InfStream. InfStream is our ad-free, uncensored platform, $2 a month. You get a whole bunch of cool videos over there. I do some really raw story times. All of Evil Week this year is on InfStream. And yeah, the story time that is up today, it's brand new, it was the second part of a story time with me in New York this last weekend. I haven't been back to New York since I moved to Montana, and going back was really tough. And I did a part 1 before I left about how anxious I was about it. And then I filmed one once I was there, and I cried through the whole video. Like start to finish, I cried for 20 minutes. But a lot of it, what I was crying about was nostalgia. And in that video, I promise you guys, I do a video on nostalgia here on YouTube. So here we are. So head on over there and check that out. So what I was upset about in New York, yeah, I mean, it was the nostalgia. It was, people kept asking like, how was it? Did you have fun? And I'm like, it was like I went back in time. But, okay, if you've seen Harry Potter, you know the scene, well, there's several of these because he was always doing it, where Harry was hiding in Dumbledore's office and spying on him, and Dumbledore was using his pensieve, where he pulled the memory out and dropped it in. And then Harry, like the little meddlesome thing he was, like peeked into the pensieve and ended up falling head first into it, and he was witnessing like the trial of like somebody, some Death Eater, and he was watching it, but he was like there, but people could walk through him and he wasn't really there. That's how nostalgia feels, right? And that's how I felt in New York. Like I'm here, but I'm not here. And I also made the comparison. It's like sleeping with an ex, you know? It's good, it's bad, you know it's wrong, but it feels so right. And the nostalgia and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it was every emotion in the world and I just couldn't handle it. And I had like several meltdowns in New York, several. And it got me to thinking a lot about nostalgia because I am a very nostalgic person. I am constantly romanticizing the past. I am constantly fretting about the future. And of course, those things go hand in hand. If you're worried about the future, which a lot of us have been this year, God, without a pandemic, we're stressed about the future. It's natural to want to retreat back to childhood, the bliss of high school, an ex-boyfriend who you loved, like a small town, whatever it was when you were studying abroad, and to really mourn that again and again and again. And you get stuck there. And like I said, it keeps you from being present because you look around and you're like, what have I done? And I just kept thinking that in New York. I was like, what have I done? What have I done? I've left this city and now I can't come back. And my friends, and I'm sure you guys say it too, you're like, of course you can go back. Like it's not North Korea, you can go back. But I mean like emotionally, no, I can't. Like I live in a big house now, and before I lived in an apartment. I can't go back to an apartment. I have land, I have a dog, I have horses. Like I can't do that. I actually can't live that life anymore. And when you realize that truly a chapter has closed, not because of logistics, but because you have moved on, it's grief. It's death, it's mortality. And that's when it gets hard. So nostalgia is more than just like, that I remember when I was at Disney World. It's like, because my parents were together and now they're not anymore. Like something has pulled you back there for a reason. And I was reading, I do a lot of like research before I do these videos. Sometimes if it's like a psychological thing, and I was doing a lot of research on studies on nostalgia. And these motherfuckers were overwhelmingly, every single study I read drew the conclusion that nostalgia is really positive. It's great. It's so helpful. It's so good for your self-esteem. And people reported feeling really good after engaging in like a nostalgia spiral. Really? They felt good. They were talking about nostalgia in a way as sort of like a life raft out of loneliness. Like say you're alone, you're isolated, as we have been this year. We think about our friends and we're wistful and all those bachelorette parties and the times we just went to brunch and blah, blah, blah. And I guess some people can just stop there. They can just stop there and be like, that was a good memory. And you know what? I have friends, so I'm not going to stress about being alone in quarantine. It's fine. I'm okay. We're going to get back there. I take it to a different place. It's like a roller coaster. I miss my friends. I have friends, but they're not here now. And then we're just off to the races. Like I start thinking of how those experiences are gone. They're gone forever. Yeah, I could book us all a hotel room in Fort Lauderdale again and get everyone down there, but it's not going to be like that one girls trip in 2016. It's not going to be like that. And then grief, you know, and it's weird because life really does just keep getting better. And I know I'm only speaking for myself, and I know we're just in a really hard place right now, but I am getting through the hard place of 2020 by reminding myself that, you know, my life gets better every year. I make more friends. I make more money. My hair gets shinier. Like life gets better. So I cling to that and I'm like, okay, even though no, we cannot replicate that 2016 girls trip where I met this boy and blah, 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 and all these things happen. But there's other girls trips to be had. And wow, we haven't experienced that yet. So there's still good times down the pipeline. But like I said, I know in this day and age, it's hard to think that there is good things down the pipeline. So here's one of my strategies, right? If you're dealing with nostalgia, accept that you are dealing with a ghost. A ghost, yes. The ghost of fill in the blank past. Christmas past, boyfriend's past, schooling past, family past, body image past. But what is a ghost? Let's talk about the hallmarks of a ghost. What are the adjectives? A ghost is scary. It's confusing. Is it really here? Is it really not? It's vague. Ghosts aren't like crisp and sharp. They're very vague, right? And they're also kind of embarrassing. You guys, I think I saw a ghost in the garage behind the ladder. You sound ridiculous. So isn't that kind of how we feel about nostalgia? I feel scared thinking about the past and how I might never replicate it. The past is also very vague. It's nostalgia blurs out all of those things. Oh, I miss my ex-boyfriend. Wait, the one who cheated on you and went to Africa with someone else? That one? Oh, ghost didn't say that. Nostalgia is confusing. I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of it. Why do I have to think about this? Why can't I just forget these things, even if they're good or bad? And it's embarrassing. Wow. I guess I just can't live in the present. Here I am stuck in college, romanticizing sophomore year again and again and again, and I can't just live. I'm 23 now, right? So let's go back to this ghost thing. Do you think if you saw a ghost, you're like, I got to go where that ghost is going. This ghost is here to drag me to hell, and I'm just going to go with it? No. Most people, when they see a ghost, they run. They throw on the light. They scramble away. They get away from it. They're not like, whoa, like hooting and hollering back at it and joining the ghost. We cannot join nostalgia either. It belongs in the past. It is supposed to be vague and hazy and scary, embarrassing, confusing, right? And we are supposed to simply acknowledge it as all of these things, try to wash our hands of it, and move on. But as we know, that's easier said than done. One thing that's helped me is cultivating more of these warm memories. Let's say we're talking about a girls' trip that we went on, right? Well, you didn't always go on that girls' trip. There was a time before you went on that trip. So how did those memories come about? What typified that? What was so great about that girls' trip, right? Was it everyone, no one was on their phone, no one was having drama with each other. We were all just super present. We were super connected. No one was taking anything too seriously. We had a lot of plans. Everything was organized. You know, get granular. What was it? And then ask yourself, okay, how can I recreate that circumstance again? No, maybe it's not going to Fort Lauderdale. Maybe it's that we're going out for holiday cocktails, or we're all coming over and I'm going to make coquito. It's coquito season. I can't wait to make coquito. I don't make it very well, but it's really good. Coquito is like a Puerto Rican holiday drink. It's so good. Anyway, now I want one. Fuck. But like, okay, if it's, hey, we're all present, we're all together, we're all laughing, we're all having fun, I can accomplish that. I can accomplish that pretty easily. I can accomplish it by tomorrow night. Okay, so now this ghost that was haunting me, get away from me. I've like shooed it away a little bit. I've demystified it. I've thrown some light on it. I've thrown some light on why this is haunting me the way that it is. And when I was in New York, God, why is every time I want to talk about New York, I start to cry? I'm going to start to cry again. I'm going to do it. Ugh. But when I was in New York and I was thinking about this and I was walking around just morose as fuck, and I'm like, the thing with nostalgia, I think one thing that messes us up is that we feel like we were taking those experiences for granted. That last Christmas with your grandparents, right? Cuddles with your puppy before they got so big. That last fun night out senior year. So I asked myself, what am I taking for granted now? And maybe it wasn't right in New York, but I'm like, what will I look back on in my current life with nostalgia? Where am I creating nostalgia now? And I think about Montana and I'm like, you know what? I think about just this summer. I have nostalgia for this summer. It was one of the most wonderful summers of my life. I was new here. I was making friends. I was dating, and like, it was just, and it still is wonderful. Like everything was so new and I was discovering everything. And I'm like, I still am. I'm still doing all of those things. I'm still completely discovering Montana. I'm discovering like parts of my house. I have a basement. I didn't know. It's like through a place. It's not like a proper basement. I don't even know what it is. It's not a crawl space. It's like a thing. So I'm an idiot. We've discovered that. But like, I'm still making friends. I'm still doing things. It's like, okay, so I am in the middle of nostalgia creation right now. Okay. So when I think of New York and I'm like, it's gone. But something else has arrived. Something else has arrived, right? So maybe instead of looking at the train that just pulled out of the station, I'm going to get on the one that just arrived. And that helped me dial down the mania because it let me know, reinforce the idea, like I said, hey, good times are still around the corner. We still have so many to be had. I don't need to stew in this reminiscing loop, right? But psychologists, they have some ideas too. And I sort of aggregated some questions that they were saying the nostalgia should ask themselves while they're in the pit of nostalgia, because they were saying it can be used for something bad. Do you know what's interesting? Nostalgia is a thermodynamic response in your body. You are more likely to be nostalgic when you're cold. And like, because they put these people in like a cold room, not like an ice box, but a cold room. And they were more likely to be nostalgic and reminisce about, I don't know, summer vacation times. They were warm, big fuzzy blankets. And then their body responded and their basal temperature raised. Nostalgia literally warmed them up. Isn't that fascinating? It's fascinating. And you know, we say all the time on here, the mind creates the body. It does. And so if we are not careful what our thoughts are, what our dominant thoughts are, they're going to be bad thoughts. They're going to be real bad thoughts, right? So it's very, very important to remember that we are feeding our body an emotional medicine every single time we have a thought. And that can create anxiety. It's like, I'm anxious about my anxiety. Like, no, just pause and be like, hey, I'm present. I'm present here. I'm creating this nostalgia. But hold on. I want to go back to that before I get to these questions. Hold on. Because I know what you're saying. That's great, Shallon. That's fucking great. That you moved out of the hellscape of New York. You live in a big, nice house in a cool new city and you're discovering things and there's horses and puppy snouts. I'm not doing any of that. I'm still trapped in my parents' house. I'm not in school. Like, I know. And I'm not trying to make light of any of the shit that's gone on this year. But there is still silver linings to be had. And we've talked about this so much. I talked about this in a whole video on how to emotionally handle another possible lockdown or quarantine or fuck, even just the winter where it's not going to be the winter you thought, you won't be back in school, whatever it might be. There is still silver linings here. Maybe the nostalgia is, yeah, I'm not back in my college town and I don't have to deal with Sorority Rush and Brittany and Darcy and their stupid body shaming, just whatever it might be. I don't have to deal with FOMO. I don't have to deal with shaving my legs as much. I don't have to deal with travel. I was traveling constantly this time last year and it was great, but it was really tiring. And I'm like, oh wow, now the benefit is I can just nest where I am and I can get like good and cozy here in this new place that I'm at. I have time to read books. Remember books? I hadn't read a book in years. I was too busy. I would only read books when we would do our little Shall Literature book club. It was like, I didn't have the bandwidth or the time. So I have worked this quarantine and this year to really lean into the blessings that are coming out of a bad situation, because there really always are blessings if we are willing to look for them. And if we're not, great, have fun being bitter. This shit's happening. Everything in life, it's happening. And the way it happens to us is based completely on how we choose to feel about it. Choose, because it is a choice. It's a glass half full or it's a glass half empty, my dude, you know? So let's talk about these questions. Okay, so here's question number 1 to ask yourself if you are in a nostalgia spiral. What emotion am I after? In engaging in nostalgia, what former self-state am I seeking to recreate? Self-state is an interesting term. It's like, what version of myself? And self-state, I like it because the word state means like, a situation. But it also means, I also think of it as like a city state, like the state of Shallon. Yes. So I'm like, to me, it also means the world. What world was I trying to create in which I was a cooler, better, happier, saner, more distracted, whatever version of myself? And when I think about New York, my big nostalgia pull, what did I miss? I missed being busy. I mean, I am busy, but I'm busy in a different way, I'm much more solitary busy. I'm busy in my home office. I'm busy filming. I'm not busy at events. I'm not busy at parties. I'm not posting really cool, like, gift bag things. I don't get to see my friends as much, my besties. So I felt very alive. And I am a person who thrives on aliveness. That was why I was cheating on boyfriends in the past, because I felt alive. And when I shifted my life and decided to feel alive in healthy ways, my career, travel, reading things, just broadening my mind, stimulating my mind, I didn't have to engage in those base animalistic ways of feeling alive, like rubbing your body against some other body, like, all right, cool, right? So ask yourself, what does this nostalgia give to you? And for some of us, it's family. Maybe it was your last Christmas with your grandparents, and it's like, no, the thing I'm missing is my fucking grandparents, okay? And I can't just run out to the old folks' home, buy 2 more, and bring them home with me. That's really not how this works. I understand that, absolutely. And I think that too. I lost my my grandmother recently, and it was awful, and there's still such a hole in my life. I have all of her voicemails saved on my phone. I'm gonna get upset. Anyway, so if you ever try to leave me a voicemail, it's not gonna work because it's full, and it's her, and I'm not gonna delete anyone. Die mad about it. So I try to focus on like, okay, well, what about that? It's like, well, it's family. Okay, well, what does family mean? Does family mean peace? Does family mean stimulation? Does family mean being your true self? Does it mean putting on a cloak of a former self, maybe when you were in youth group and you were a good Christian girl, or whatever it was? See if you can replicate that in your day-to-day life now, just in small ways even. Daily phone call with your mom, FaceTimes with your nieces and nephews, whatever, so that you have that self-state. You create that world in a way that is not such a spike the way nostalgia is. It's just this emotional bomb. Instead, it's a little low-grade constant buzzing of the things you emotionally need. Question number 2. How will this nostalgia help me? And also, how can I stay rooted in the present while also feeling the positive emotions of reminiscing? I think we kind of covered this. Remind yourself that you are currently nostalgia creating. You're currently nostalgia creating. If you're like, no, I'm not. I'm nostalgic for the 2 summers ago when we went to Ibiza, and now I'm in an office every day, so I'm sure the fuck not nostalgic. I'm never going to be like, ooh, remember when I worked 10 hours a day in an office instead of on the coast of Spain? I get it. I know. So maybe the nostalgia route isn't going to be the bulk of what you're doing every day. Maybe it's not going to be your office, right? Maybe it's not going to be where you live. Maybe it's going to be your pottery class. Maybe it's going to be your puppy. Maybe it's going to be those silly little distance like poker games on the lawn with your neighbors. I don't know. But you need to know. And you have to find that out. And sorry, people can't spoon feed this to you. This is what sucks about psychology is like when you realize what you have to do, seeing is believing. And if you see, you have to believe. And if you believe, you have to actually do the work, right? Or you don't. And it's funny, like, it's funny how people who hate me are so frequently my ex fans, which I think is like so bizarre. But it's because they have run up against this exact truth. Fuck. Shallon has illuminated to me what I need to do to be better, happier, healthier, more alpha, whatever. And I am either incapable or unwilling to do that work. So instead of turning that on myself and being like, you need to get your shit together, I'm going to turn it on her. Because somehow my shitty life is this random YouTuber in Montana's fault. Flawless. Mwah. That's, wow. You should do a TED Talk on just pure logic. Just quit your job. Be a logician. Third question. This I really like. When I'm reminiscing, am I avoiding complex emotions? If so, what are they? And why are they so hard for me? Where else can I seek help in managing my emotions? This is interesting. Am I avoiding complex emotions? Because let's go back to this ghost metaphor. What is a ghost? Vague, hazy, amorphous, ethereal. You're like, is it here? Is it not? And the past becomes like that too. Rose-colored glasses, hindsight's 2020, Monday morning quarterback. All of these phrases we have to describe the same thing. We blunt the edges of the past. We blunt the reality. Why? Well, that's what we need to answer, right? Why do I look at New York with so much nostalgia? Maybe because the complex emotion is that I moved 2,000 miles away to a random state, in a random town, in a random neighborhood where I didn't know one person. I didn't have a boyfriend when I got here. It was a map dot. I threw a dart. What kind of person does that? I'm happy. I love it. But the kind of person who does that is not the kind of person who has a plan for their life. Right? I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 1-year plan. Do I want children? Do I want to get married? What am I doing? Those are complex emotions. Where is my life going? And suddenly, this nostalgia is not nostalgia at all. It's an existential crisis. Come on in, guys. The water's fine. Come on into Crazy Town. So when I think about New York, I didn't necessarily have those stressors. I mean, I did. That's the thing though. I did. But I choose in my nostalgia not to remember that I also didn't know what I was doing with my life in the future when I was in New York. But I was so busy and so stressed, I didn't think about it. Well, how could I even think about kids? I live in an apartment. We don't have to live in an apartment. You can move to Montana. You can live in a house. So now you have to actually be like, okay, all these logistical things that I was blaming my inertia on don't exist anymore. So what now, bitch? So yeah, maybe it wasn't the ramen place that you're actually missing and freaking out over. Maybe it's your just like existential crisis. And we don't want to think that because that's worse. Like the nostalgia sucks enough. You're like, oh, so you're asking me to like dive head first into something that's so much harder to unravel? Yes. Yes. Because this is the work. This is the psychological splinter we talk about all the time. The psychological splinter, like a regular splinter, if you don't pull it out, it festers and then it hurts and you're like, they're going to have to chop it. They're going to have to chop my whole hand off, right? You freak out when it's like, if you had just had a little bit of pain, dug it out, it would have started to heal. But that would take bravery, would take guts. It would take facing it head on. But what's the alternative? You're going to have to face it eventually. By the time you do, it's going to be a lot more pain aggregate. So look at nostalgia. Look at what that ghost is trying to tell you, because that's what we always think about ghosts. What do they want? What are they here for? What are they trying to tell me? Do you need help? What is this? Your nostalgia is a ghost and it's speaking to you. And if you do the work of listening, You're like, thank you. You may go back to the other dimension now. And all of these things that you were just like twisted about are no longer sad. They're not even really bittersweet. They're just sweet because you know you can recreate these circumstances. You know more about yourself. You're not afraid of dealing with these complex emotions. And you have a toolbox to manage emotions going forward. Man, we got deep today. But that's what we do here. We grow, we level up, we become better. I want to know your experiences with nostalgia. When does it kick in for you? Does it kick in when you're happy? Because that's what some of these studies were saying, that like people feel nostalgic sometimes when they're happy. I was like, I don't. I mean, it kicks in when I'm really sad, or complex emotions, when I'm vulnerable. Stuff like this, grief, we say grief is a stalker. Grief is something that waits for you and lurks when you're tired, vulnerable, not paying attention, and it pounces on you. So we always have to stay emotionally vigilant and think about what's truly going on inside of ourselves so that we can manage all of this. I hope your holiday is going well. Come back tomorrow. We've got so many more videos. And like I said, head over to InStream for my super weepy, it's maybe the most intense video I've ever done over on InStream. I'll see you later, Shalligators. Mwah!